I'm going to preview the Baylor versus Texas State football game. And one thing that's notable about Texas State, right off the top, guess how many new players they have in NFL roster size? You heard me correctly. 53. I mean, granted, they have a new head coach. And they lost some players to graduation. They lost some players to the transfer portal. I mean, because look, a new head coach is a new head coach. My coach is not there anymore. I'm going. And some players from Incarnate Word followed DJ Kenny to Texas State here. And they're going to run I know it kind of says multiple offense, but it's really a spread offense like our Browns used to have, and currently like Tennessee has, as well as like some other schools. I mean, they spread you out and throw the ball all day. They also like to run. They could run the ball too. So, and I don't know who's going to start at quarterback for Texas State, because remember, their starting quarterback from last year left. And granted, they have C.J. Rogers, but he's a third-string quarterback. He's not going to play unless it's a blowout, of course. It's either going to be Malik Hornsby or T.J. Finley. And T.J. Finley is a pocket passer. He's not a scrambler, by the way. Malik Hornsby is a mobile guy that, like, he's going to be more like the read option guy. I'm not going to say T.J. Finley isn't, but it's the truth when you look at the game for both of them. And they have underwhelmed in their careers at this point. I mean, TJ Finley was at Auburn, and Malik Hornsby went to Arkansas. So, and Malik Hornsby, by the way, is like number 4 for the team, 6'4", 186-pound quarterback. That's a junior, by the way. And TJ Finley, 6'7", 250 pounds at quarterback. Yeah, he's a huge dude. That's a sophomore. And TJ Finley is number 7, by the way. So, and if you're curious about their stats, it's not like a lot. I mean, the thing about TJ Finley is he only had 53 attempts last year, passing attempts, and 33 completions for 431 yards, with 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions, and 17 rushing attempts for 33 yards. So yeah, he's not a scrambler, as you could tell. The problem with him is his decisiveness, and he has an arm though. He does. He can make all the throws. He's just not decisive. So I don't know if they're going to go with him or Malik Hornsby, which I know he only had 27 passing attempts last year and only 13 completions for 268 yards with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. But he had 31 rushing attempts for 172 yards though. Yeah, and 2 receptions for 8 yards at Arkansas last year. So yeah, the average offensive line weight is like 313 pounds. But granted, they do bring in some guys on the offensive line from Incarnate Word. Like I said, some of those players from Incarnate Word went to Texas State to follow their head coach DJ Kenny. So now Lincoln Pear is still there, number 22, 5'9", 195-pound running back. That's a junior. 172 rushing attempts for 772 yards with 5 touchdowns, and 29 receptions for 229 yards with 1 touchdown. And Calvin Hill is still there, number 11, 5'8", 200-pound running back. That's a junior. 76 rushing attempts for 333 yards with 1 touchdown and 8 receptions for 46 yards. So that's based on last year's stats, and I know the offense is going to be a little bit different, possibly, than last year. I know, they do have, like, Calvin Hill, Josh Berry, number 20, and Jamil Jeter, number 28. But both those guys had less than 200 yards rushing. But granted, Jamil Jeter, last year, Jamil Jeter was really better the previous year than in 2022, if we're being clear. But they do bring back the best wide receiver from last year. And Ashton Hawkins, number 1, 5'10" 170-pound wide receiver. That's a junior. 50 receptions for 587 yards with 7 touchdowns. And 1 rushing attempt for -4 yards. They do have Charles Brown, though, number 13, 5'11" 170-pound wide receiver. That's a sophomore. 22 receptions for 297 yards with 3 touchdowns. And they do have Julian Ortega-Jones, number 17, 6'2" 200-pound wide receiver. That's a senior. 29 receptions for 270 yards with 1 touchdown. And that's all the guys they returned that had over 200 reception yards or more, by the way. And I know there's some other guys like Son Shaw Jr. from Iowa State. And I know they have a UCF running back, too, when you look at the roster. And I did not mention those guys right there. And the average defensive line weight is like 259 pounds, but that's like 20 guys, and the offensive line has 20 guys as well. But the defense runs like a 4-2-5. So the leading tackler from one of the leading tacklers from last year is Torrey Spears, number 12, 6'3", 210-pound safety. That's a senior, 77 tackles, 41 of those solos, 2.5 tackles for loss, 0.5 sacks, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 forced fumble. Jordan Revels, number 8, 6'8", 250-pound defensive end. That's a senior, 70 tackles, 27 of those are solo, 11 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 1 pass breakup, 10 quarterback hurries, and 1 fumble recovery. Then it's just Chris Mills, number 7, 5'11", 175-pound cornerback. That's a senior, 42 tackles, 25 of those solo, 1 tackle for loss, 7 pass breakups, and 1 forced fumble. Okay, Alonzo Edwards Jr. at number 4, 5'11", 190-pound cornerback. That's a junior, 31 tackles, 23 of those are solo, 2 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 1 quarterback hurry, 3 forced fumbles. Ben Bell, number 33, 6'2", 250-pound defensive end. That's a junior, 25 tackles, 11 of those are solo, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hurries, and 1 forced fumble. And I'm going to mention only 2 more guys because after that it's like 8 tackles or less, and it's not worth mentioning. Dominic Ratcliffe, number 97, 6'3", 280-pound defensive tackle. That's a sophomore, 14 tackles, 4 of those are solos, 1.5 tackles for loss, 0.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hurries. And Devin Martinez, number 24, 6'2", 235-pound defensive end. That's a junior, 10 tackles, 5 of those are solo. They do lose their starting kicker from last year, by the way. But they have their punter back. It's Seamus O'Kelly, number 99. 6 foot, 170-pound punter. That's a senior. 73 punts for 2,953 yards. And 8 of those punts went over 50 yards, by the way. And the long was 68 yards. And the average is like 40.5 in yards. And 13 of those punts landed inside the 20-yard line, by the way. And this is an offense for Texas State that will test you in the secondary. So you got to be ready and communicate in the back end. And I know we're going to try to play more man coverage and be more aggressive. So it's going to be a good test for these for the secondary as a whole, not just cornerbacks, not just safeties, but both. Of course, you need to stop the run. And in order to stop an up-tempo offense like this, create negative plays. Get them behind schedule. Of course, and it would be huge if you got some interceptions. Of course, you got to stop. You should be able to stop the run. And I get last year at Incarnate where they averaged 215 yards rushing. And they bring 3 of those guys. At least 3 of those guys are going to be starters for Texas State. But you should not allow them to run the ball on you. You shouldn't. The question is, can the defensive backs step up in this game? And hopefully they're ready for the challenge. And you don't want to give up a lot of deep shots. You can't get beat one-on-one. You don't want to give up explosive plays. I mean, as many as possible, if any. So that's the truth on that. And of course, you gotta make adjustments on the fly. And like I said, I don't. And of course, if Malik Hornsby is a starter at quarterback, you gotta pass rush with integrity, and don't let him escape from the pocket. Make him beat you through the air, because up to this point, he's not been proven to do that. I mean, it's the truth. Granted, I know Lindsey Scott, the incarnate word quarterback from last year, was kind of like the same weight as Malik Hornsby in a way, but he did really good last year. He's no longer playing, by the way. So he's on the staff for Texas State, and yeah, that's just a little side note right there. Now, offensively, you got to take care of the ball. Run the ball down their throats. I mean, I'm just saying the truth. And of course, on defense, I forgot to mention this on defense, you got to control line scrimmage. Not just in the run game, but in the passing game. Get some sacks on him. Fluster him. Whoever's at quarterback. I mean, that's the truth. And don't let that quarterback escape from the pocket. And of course, you got to contain the best wide receivers. I mean, all the wide receivers, especially Ashton Hawkins. Especially him. Based on the numbers alone. I mean, yeah. I mean, almost 600 yards receiving last year. I will say that on offense, of course, you should be able to do what you want as long as you take care of the ball. You don't want to give up turnovers, and of course, in order you gotta reduce as much as on defense, limit the points off turnovers to nothing as much as possible. If there is a turnover, which hopefully there isn't, but if you create turnovers, then the offense needs to get some points off turnovers and convert those into touchdowns. And we know there are some new rules this year in terms of like consecutive timeouts and all that, and clock. The clock is gonna not stop anymore unless it's an incompletion and it's like last 2 minutes of halves. So you cannot let Texas State dictate the pace. You got to take your own pace. I mean, of course, I know Blake Shapen wasn't that great last year, but when you look at the Texas quarterback, I should know this guy. Oh, this guy's name from last year for Texas, but you get who I'm talking. Quinn Ewers. Yeah, that's right. What was I thinking? He wasn't that great last year either. So that's just saying in terms of numbers. I mean, I'm telling the truth here. And I'm going to put these stats in the description below. Of course, on special teams, you got to have good punts. If you're going to punt the ball, of course. I mean, and you got to make every extra point and make every field goal as much as possible, of course. Especially when you want to make extra points. And, of course, no special teams blunders. Like a block punt or a block kick or bat snap. Anything like that. Of course, you don't want to make any mental mistakes at all in all the three aspects of the game. And, of course, in all three aspects of the game, you got to be better. I mean, got to be disciplined and not commit a lot of penalties, if any. And I get this is game one, and I know there might be some nerves for some of these players because some of these guys have not played in McLean Stadium before. But you got to keep them even keeled. I mean, you got to stay calm and have confidence in yourself. I mean, that's the most important thing. You got to have confidence in yourself because you can't self-doubt in your head because it will get into your head, and then, oh no, we're not going to be so good in this game. You got to ignore that. Believe in yourself. Seriously. And at least it's and the game is at 6 o'clock, by the way, on Saturday on ESPN Plus. So yeah. And this is a game where you should win this game easily, but you better not overlook them for Utah next week. I mean, I'm just saying that because that's a bigger game than this one. But I'm in terms of lower level, and Utah's a higher level. You cannot overlook this team because they will make you pay offensively. And I know in corner last year's defense for them was not that great, but it's because their defense was on the field a bunch too. I mean, and I know they created some turnovers at times, so you got to protect the ball as much as possible. Of course, I mean, I know you could say that about every game, but I'm just saying that. It's the truth when you look at it. I mean, in every game, when you win the turnover battle, and you gotta win the time of possession battle too. That would be helpful, especially to keep that up-tempo offense off the field as much as possible, and create 3 and outs. I mean, create some negative plays, like I said. And I know Texas State might be blitzing on defense, but you got to make the proper throw, and you got to run block pretty good, and you got to protect the passers too, because they will blitz on passing downs too. Of course, like every team does, but I'm just saying. I mean, that's the truth. And you got to try to confuse Malik Hornsby a little bit too, at times. So, anyways, if you like this content, like and subscribe on it so you guys learn. 5 subscribers are on the road to it. Let's go. And Baylor fans, show up for this game if you can, because they would appreciate it, I know. And especially it's game 1 right here.